G'day everyone, my name's Ned. I'm an intern with Bush Heritage in the SAO rangelands, and yeah, I'm going to talk about using GPS data to improve your baiting efficiency. Before I start, I'd like to acknowledge the Whadjuk Noongar, and as well as the Anakarinja Muddy Yunkinjara, whose IPA I worked on. Oh shit. So this project took place on Bonbon Station. It's a 2,000 square K reserve about 200 kilometres south of Coober Pedy. Habitats are primarily mulga woodlands, a bit of Western Mile, Keenapod shrublands, and this labyrinth, tea tree labyrinth and ephemeral wetlands, which is most of the this sort of habitat is in the centre of the property. Around Lake Puckridge, and you can probably see there's a bunch of drainage lines that run into the lake, so the property gets dissected by these minor and major drainage lines. On Bonbon, it's inside the dog fence, so the main predator management has been quarterly track baiting for foxes, and yeah, there's a couple of camera grids to monitor the efficacy of the baits, which was pretty successful over the droughts in bringing foxes down, but yeah, now we need to manage the cats. We tried Eradicat, but didn't really work. There was very low uptake. And yeah, aerial baiting was proposed, but just wasn't implemented because of the cost and this sort of knowledge gap around why there was low uptake. And yeah, we kind of thought it was a habitat. The cats weren't using the habitats that the Eradicat trial was in, so I got this internship to look at where the cats were moving. So I put some collars on, used spot trace commercial asset trackers. They're just like the smaller version of those orange spot trackers that most people use for personnel safety. They're good because you get data returned by satellite. They're super cheap compared to commercial options, and they can be reused easily, but problems are they're bulky and don't have great fix success compared to Iridium, and there's limited scheduling options. But yeah, come talk to me after if you want to learn more about these things. I just skim through it. I personally think they're pretty good when you're on a budget, and there are lots of cats, so you can catch lots of cats, get lots of data, and make up for the poorer data quality. But anyway, I put 6 collars on and pulled together some underlying habitat data. On the right's a turn map of vegetation classes, and I reduced those down to a few that you see on the next slide. Also included infrastructure like old dumps, tanks, bores, and tracks. And yeah, ran a step selection model using the AMT package in R and got strong selection for infrastructure because some cats were using dumps, and then also drainage lines. Yeah, they were selecting for these minor drainage lines and to some extent the other major drainages. And so we got that information, and then we were like, how do we use this to inform our adaptive management strategy? And so we decided to look at some different aerial baiting options, which is difficult and costly to test like in the field because you have to give lots of money to aerial bait. But so I just did some simulations. So this I split all my cat tracks into like 3-day periods. As I read, that's when baits are most palatable and hopefully haven't been removed by non-targets. And for each of those tracks, I created utilisation distributions and then point clouds of different baiting strategies. I tested a few different ones, like a standard block baiting over the whole zone, and then also a buffer around the main drainages. It's a 2.5 kilometre buffer, but I also did like a 5 kilometre buffer, and different spacing as well. That's 500 metre flight lines with 200 metre drops, like a more spread approach versus the like 1 kilometre 200 times 40 metre clustered bait drop every kilometre. And then I extracted all those values from the rasters that I'd made earlier, and then ran it for different densities of baits, from 1 to 50 baits per square K. And then, converted any values over 0.01 and classed it as like a bait encounter. So I ended up with a 1-0 binomial distribution, and I just ran binomial GLMs on it to see which was better. And this is what I got. You probably can't really see the different strategies, but up the top is the small buffers around creek lines, and on the bottom is the block baiting. So this is a measure of efficacy, like per bait encounter rate. And so for all the baits that you put out, the likely encounter rate per bait goes down for block baiting because there's more baits out there in places that cats don't use as much, where it's better in the buffers around creek lines because that's where that's the habitats they are using more frequently on Bon Bon. And then, it doesn't change for increased bait density because you put a bunch out, you get more encounters, but you also get just as many misses on other baits. But the sort of effective encounter rate goes up with bait density, as you'd expect. But interestingly, the larger buffers around creek lines were just as effective as the block baiting as a number of encounters. And so, there was no advantage to clustered or spread, and the small buffers put out less baits and had marginally less total encounters in my simulations. And so that's what I did. To summarise, as you can see on that figure on the right, hopefully, which is just the utilisation distributions, they're 95% utilisation distributions cover a large area, and then their 50% utilisation distributions are pretty clearly associated with the drainage lines. And so if you target baiting to these habitats, you could be more efficient with no to limited loss of total encounters in that 3-day window when baits are most palatable. You could cut costs, or you could extend the extent of your baited area for the same price. So it's just hopefully more efficient, more effective. Lots of caveats. This was just an internship. We've got 6 collars on. I did it over this summer because that's when I was employed. And I got the scary cat. I'll leave it there. Come chat to me afterwards.